that Jamal had that ended up going for a touchdown. That was a very frustrating play. The call on the field was wrong, but the net result was right. They called it a fumble, but he didn't lose control. He did have control of the ball. He was trying to just spike it on the ground, but he ended up throwing the ball backwards. Either way, it's a lateral, it's a live ball, and more concerning to me was that no whistle was ever blown, and our whole offense just stood there and watched him run it in. So that was similar to that same play with Aaron Millette against Elon, where no whistle was ever blown, but the defense stopped playing and watched him walk in for a touchdown, and that's something that's really got to stop. Also, late in the game, Drew Stewart missed a chip shot field goal from 24 yards that would have got us to within 7. Obviously, that would have changed the tone of that final drive a whole lot and put a lot of pressure on Wofford to get some stops. That's the second week in a row he's missed one. Did the same thing right before halftime at Samford, and had he not, had our offense not been able to come back and have that huge drive to get us to win late, then that could have been the difference last week as well. So we've really got to shore up the kicking game there a little bit. And then a couple of questionable play calls as well. We got the ball down to the Wofford 12-yard line there on the second to last drive, and we ran the ball 3 times. And the biggest head scratcher of that, I think, was a quarterback keeper on 3rd and 5. And that led to the field goal, which we eventually missed. And then on the final drive, even though it was a 2-possession game and would have taken a miracle, would have taken a touchdown and an onside kick to do anything, we had no timeouts and seemed like we just continually had short passes over the middle to let the clock run out. So, there a lot of things contributed to it. There was, we have a lot of things to work on. There were some big mistakes that were made, but you can't really pinpoint one thing. And, just like when we talk about a great team effort by them and a win, it was, losing is team effort as well. And, there's definitely some things we kind of need to go back to the drawing board on.
Yeah, definitely. And your first point that you hit on was Joel Ross's flipping in the end zone. That as soon as he did that, I was like, I actually thought that it would have negated the touchdown. I don't know if they changed that rule or what. I know last year they had that rule: you celebrate, it's a touchdown's gone. But luckily that obviously didn't happen. But like you said, you have Sam Martin who's kicks it out of bounds after that penalty, and I mean, you can't really blame Sam Martin for that. He's just trying to get as much leg on it as possible, so it's not they're not starting the return from the 20. So you can't really blame Sam Martin for kicking that out of bounds necessarily. And then after the kicking out of bounds, they get the ball on the 50-yard line, which that's just tremendous. You can't expect a defense to give up start on that awful field position against a team that's averaging 4 or 6 over 6 yards a carry. You can't expect them to stop them from a 50-yard drive and keep them out of the end zone. Just not going to happen. And then in our offensive line, Jamal Jackson was rushed out of the pocket a lot. He did not have the time, but I also think a lot of the problem was his indecision. I feel like he was, should I run? Should I not run? Should I not run? Not run? Okay, I'm going to run. But by that time he made that decision, somebody was in his face already. He couldn't run, or vice versa. If he was going to throw instead of run, he made that decision too late, and the receivers were already on the sideline and couldn't stay in bounds to make the catch. And then obviously the drop passes. Sean Price, I know Stephen Miller had some, but Sean Price was I feel like he came back to human status this weekend. He had been Superman for us essentially, especially after that Samford touchdown catch, and he came back down to earth a little bit, I think. And I know I trust that Sean Price and Coach Stepp and everybody involved is they're more frustrated than we are as fans. I hope they are, at least, and I know they're going to be working on it. And everything that I saw, at least with Price, was he was trying to run before he had the ball, and luckily that's an easy fix. That's not a poor technique necessarily. It's he was looking at the defender before the ball was in his hands, and that's a fairly easy fix to do or to overcome. And I think we're going to see a big game out of him from Western, to be honest. So yeah, we definitely did have a lot of negatives, but there were some bright spots in the game as well. like you mentioned, this is a very young team. So the fact that we did bring some bright spots from this game is very encouraging. So Mike, go ahead and give your take on some of the bright spots that you got.
Well, yeah, I definitely think that there were some positives to be taken for this game. Obviously, and after a tough loss like this, it's kind of hard to look for the pluses and the good things that came out of it. But there were some. Where we mentioned that Sean Price struggled a little bit. Our veteran receivers really played like veterans. Tony Washington had 7 catches for 75 yards. Also earned himself Southern Conference Special Teams Player of the Week with a 99-yard kickoff return that gave Appalachian the lead late in the third quarter. And then Andrew Peacock had 7 catches for 55 yards, and he seemed to catch pretty much everything that came his way. So it's just one of those things where we talk about earlier, sometimes experience trumps talent. Obviously, Washington and Peacock both have a lot of talent themselves, but, Price has got unlimited talent. He really is there's really no ceiling on what he can do for us, but he's young, he's inexperienced, and, one thing that as fans, we need to be mindful of that. Not only is he a redshirt freshman, but he was a track guy in high school. He's only played organized football for 4 years at any level. He played high school football for the past 2 years, so that's 4 years total. One of those he wasn't even seeing live game action last year. So really, this is his 3rd season of organized football in his entire life. When you got a 19-year-old kid that's only halfway through his 3rd season, you're going to see some games like we saw on Saturday where he is inconsistent. And fortunately, I think that we do have guys behind him like Tony Washington, Andrew Peacock, that are veterans. They've been there before, and they'll kind of pick up the slack for him. But it was kind of, as you mentioned earlier, between the indecision of Jamal Jackson, the offensive line, the drop passes, they all kind of go hand in hand. And football truly is the ultimate team game. And it's if Jamal Jackson's for him to be able to make those quick decisions, he needs to have confidence that his guys are going to catch it. For him to have time to find the guys that can catch it, the offensive line's got to do their job too. So, it really all works together. But the 2 veteran wide receivers had good games for us. Tony Watson really gave us a chance to win with that kickoff return as well. Our 3rd down defense, as much as it seemed like Wofford really kind of was running all over us on Saturday. There are some serious improvements over the Citadel game, and 3rd down defense is one of them. Wofford was only 4 for 14 on 3rd down, and that was that's a huge improvement. We really, when we're able to get them in those 3rd down situations, the defense more times than not was able to find a way to get them off the field. The downside of that is that they were 2 for 2 on 4th down, but on those 3rd down conversions, the defense, we saw a marked improvement there. And Carl Anderson, when he came in for Brandon Greer, he had a great game. He had 10 tackles, seemed to really stick to his assignments well. He didn't seem fooled by what Wofford was doing out there. And my hope is that the next time we play a triple option defense next time we play a triple option offense when we go down to Statesboro, I hope we make some adjustments on defense, and assuming that Brandon Greer is back to 100% and is ready to play for that Georgia Southern game, I would really love to see us have some sets where maybe we take out that star position, get a little bit more beef up front, and have Brandon Greer, Jeremy Kimbrough, and Carl Anderson all out there on the field at the same time. Because we all know how important the defensive line is in stopping a triple option. They need to get that push up front, and I think having 3 linebackers behind them might help them get that push they need. Yeah. And outside of Carl Anderson individually, Ronald Blair, as we've kind of come to expect, he had a great game. He always seems to play well against triple option teams. He was one of the few guys that played well against the Citadel. He had a great game against Georgia Southern last year. He also had 10 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. And then as we've also become accustomed to, Sam Martin had a good game in special teams, averaged 50 yards a punt. Really, for the most part, helped, keep us in the game in terms of field position and not allowing Wofford to work with too many short fields. There was the one kickoff out of bound that we mentioned earlier. That was he was kind of put in a bad position by the silly penalty by Joel Ross after that touchdown. That was the only kickoff all day that he didn't kick out of the end zone for a touchback. So from kickoffs and punts, he really did. He helped us out a lot on field position, and aside from all the individual efforts, one thing as a team that I really think is positive is that the triple option is such a it's very hard to, it's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of things that you do when you're trying to defend a traditional offense. And the improvement from the Citadel game to the Wofford game as a team, where that Citadel game, they're not as good offensively as Wofford, and that game was over before halftime. Whereas this Wofford game, we really stuck in there with them. We had a lead going into the fourth quarter. It was, I really feel like even though we lost the game, we made some serious strides in the right direction. And obviously, the big question is, how much more improvement can we make before we play Georgia Southern? Because we're going to have to improve. The improvement between the Wofford game and the Georgia Southern game is going to have to be as much or more than what we saw from the Citadel to Wofford. So it'll be interesting to see how we fare down in Statesboro. But even if we don't. Even if we aren't able to go down there and slow them down like we'd like to, I think that defensively we are at least moving in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with 100%. And again, we both noted on it earlier that this is such a young team, and being able to see that progression, I think, is huge. Just a few weeks into a few weeks of preparation, essentially. So I think that's huge that we can see that. And I love that you mentioned Carl Anderson as part of the positives. And one thing that I remember vividly about Carl Anderson is there was one play that you could tell he was definitely he watched his film and he knew exactly what was coming, because pre-snap he went and tapped. I believe it was Stephen Burns told him to move over to the left a little bit, and Burns didn't. I don't know for a fact it was Burns, so if it's not, I apologize. But it was a defensive lineman, and he didn't move. So Carl Anderson physically pushed him, moved him over, picked his rear end up, and moved him over to the left. And Carl Anderson that cleared the hole for him, and he was able to get a stop at the line of scrimmage. He obviously saw the film, he prepared well, and he knew exactly what was coming, and then was able to see it pre-play and snuff it out, which I thought was really good to see, especially from a backup. So that was awesome to see. And then obviously Washington's 99-yard kickoff return. It's been a while since we've seen one of those at Kid Brewer Stadium, so it was great to see that. And really at that point, I thought that was the turning point of the game. I thought we were just going to come out and absolutely dominate the rest of the way, to be honest. Obviously that didn't happen, but momentum was on our side at that point. During that return was the loudest I think it's been in Kid Brewer Stadium all season, except for maybe a few moments in the Montana game. So that was great to get the fans involved again, and then like I said, I really thought that was the turning point of the game, and we were just dominate, which didn't happen. Wofford came back and quieted us up pretty quickly. But so yeah, there were some positives to take from the game. A loss, I know, as we both said many times already so far this show, that a loss is very disappointing regardless of how you spin it. But this is I don't want to say a good loss, because there's never a good loss, but there's worse losses, again, for instance, against the Citadel. Wofford came in, we were the underdog. Wofford came in, in my opinion, they're a top 5 team. That, like you said, Mike, their defense is probably the best we've played all season, and might be the best we play the rest of the season. So hopefully we can continue to improve against the triple option, especially going down to Statesboro in a few weeks. And what we had talked about, I believe, off air, Mike, is that Georgia Southern is the triple option team in the league that actually has the athletic ability to match ours. So that's going to be interesting to see how we respond. Our backs are against the wall now, and our guys seem to always play up when that happens. So hopefully that continues, and we continue to get better. So unfortunately, it's time to put the Wofford loss behind us, just like the team has to do. We got to put it behind us and continue to cheer on our black and gold, and time for us to focus on Western. So Mike, what do you have to say about the Western game this upcoming weekend?
Well, it's a lot of our fans have talked about how it could potentially be a trap game, because obviously it's Western Carolina, that team's going to get up for us more than anyone they play all year. I have no doubt that they could go 1-10, and if that one win was against Appalachian, they'd probably consider the season a success. They definitely they want to beat us very badly. They haven't beaten us since 2004 when we lost to them in Cullowhee.